Hey, everybody, we have got an incredible guest with us today, Jedd Napalm Johnson, and he has got some of the strongest hands on the planet. Now, his grip feats are really too numerous to list, although we're going to get into some of them shortly. And he's not just an extraordinary athlete, but he is a world-class coach. Welcome to the show, Jedd.
John, thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm very excited. So let's get this thing going.
All right, so before we get into all the grip goodness today, I want you to share with our listeners how you went from baseball to becoming a grip master, how you got interested in grip, and then how you got the nickname Napalm.
Okay. So I played baseball through high school, and I went to Mansfield University, which is a Division II school, and I was recruited to play baseball there. And unfortunately, I just wasn't. I was a first baseman and a pitcher in high school, and then after 1 week, I became only a pitcher because what I did not know is that they had three first basemen already, or I was the third string first baseman. So the chances of me going in there and getting some playing time as a freshman at first base was very slim. I had a couple at bats in the early preseason fall inter squad games that we played, and I did not hit well. So I was moved to full-time pitcher very soon. The problem was I did not throw very hard. My highest velocity was probably 80, 81, something like that. So I did not have an overpowering arm. I threw a lot of junk. So I wasn't like a strikeout pitcher in high school. I would throw a complete game and only throw 75, 80 pitches. So I relied a lot on defense and didn't throw a lot of balls. Didn't walk a lot of people. So I played for 2 years, and eventually, I actually pulled my groin my freshman year, and I had to kind of modify my mechanics because I couldn't stride. And basically every time I pitched, my groin would pull again. So then I ended up damaging my arm. So after 2 years of struggling like that, I said enough is enough, and I began to pursue my dream of becoming a professional wrestler and turn to bodybuilding 5 days a week. So I during that time I hooked up with Jim Smith, and we created Diesel Crew and began. While I was pursuing bodybuilding, we also started folding in powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and stuff like that. So I graduated college in 2001. We started, experimenting with all the other types of strength training. And in 2003, we signed up for our first strongman contest. Around that time, there was also a grip contest that was being promoted online in Pennsylvania. So I signed up for that as well. And I continued strongman training until 2006. I got laid up with a few back injuries, so I decided to stop doing that and just stuck with grip sport from 2006 on. So that's how that progression kind of took place. And I pursued my NSCA certification as a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and became fully certified sometime after college. I really don't recall. But the name Napalm is a college nickname that I got. So as I said, I was always passionate about professional wrestling, and my senior year at one point I was trying to come up with a name because WWF held their first version of the Tough Enough tryouts. So I created a video where I filmed some training, and like I said, I was coming up with a name, and I was trying to think of something different, something that would set me apart from everybody else. And as I recall, there was a match sometime in the late '90s, early 2000s where Kane ended up getting set on fire. So I was like, well, maybe I can be a pyromaniac and celebrate by like setting myself on fire
That's awesome.
at the end of matches. So I had heard that if you take hand sanitizer, it'll set on fire. So I use at parties, I would put hand sanitizer on my hand and set it on fire. And I the name I came up with was Napalm Jedd, which napalm it was kind of like Cactus Jack, Napalm
Hmm.
Jedd. It kind of rolls off your tongue quite well. And I knew that napalm was a devastating chemical that they used in either one of the Korean or
Vietnam, I think,
Vietnam
was the big
wars,
one.
yeah, in order to burn down vegetation and stuff like that. So that's where it came from, and it's stuck since then. And now most people just call me Napalm. Nobody even knows me as Jedd Johnson. So that's actually not true. That's a total lie. Everybody knows me as Jedd Johnson. So I just I don't want to misconvey anything.
Oh man! Now, did you ever spend any time? I'm off script here, but did you spend any time on the indie circuit at all?
No, I unfortunately, if there's anything about my life that I regret, it's that I didn't pursue that. Uh, in Remember, I graduated college in 2001. Uh, in 2015, I found out there was a wrestling school about an hour, less than an hour and a half away from me. And I went, and the trainer there was Justin Glory, and his school was either Bone Breakers or Back Breakers, Academy or something like that. Right now, I don't recall exactly. So I contacted him. He invited me down to watch a training session, and I got there early. We sat down at his desk. We talked about stuff, and it was going to be $200 a month. And I said, okay, well, how long do you think it would take for me to make my money back? And I gave him all the credit in the world. He said, you will never make your money back. In 2015, I was already 37. So he said, like, the only way you're going to make your money back is to get signed by basically WWE, because there were no other companies back then
Hmm.
that were very large. AEW hadn't come on board at that time, and the decision was made for me because I already had an appointment for getting my sinuses scraped like a week later, and they told me that if I got hit in the nose within like a month of that surgery, that I could die. So I just kind of I wrote Justin Glory, and I told him the situation. I told him thank you and all that stuff. It was a really interesting experience to go watch that session. Uh, I learned in just an hour or two. I learned that working the left, like grabbing the left arm, left leg, stuff like that. I learned about some of the basic choreography where you have to stand a certain way so they can get your left leg and left arm, and where if you did that wrong, you would screw up the chain maneuvers and stuff like that. It was very, very interesting. Uh, and in fact, there's a local guy that did get into professional wrestling that had already been wrestling for several years, and he attended that session, and he said that he had never been told that before about the stances and stuff like that. So I found that to be eye opening. But no, I never got in there. But it's not something I've ever lost sleep about or anything like that. They did offer me. There was the whatever day I went down there, that weekend they were going to be in a small town running a show, and they did offer me to walk down the aisle as like an ominous person to just stare at people, grunt at them, things like that. Not getting into any action and definitely not be in the ring, but they made the offer because I'll tell you, at 6'2", I was several inches taller than just about every single person that was there.
Mm.
You can't really judge everyone's height when they're in the ring because they're already 3-4 feet above you, and everybody looks taller. But I mean, I think I could have had a presence because of my height, but it didn't work out. It's no big deal.
Yeah, and you talk about if you got hit in the nose, the consequences of that. There's going to be a stiff worker somewhere that's going to pop you. It's just the business. That's the way it goes. And yeah, you and I both have an affinity for wrestling. I especially love old school wrestling, and we try and go watch indies whenever we can. If WWE's in town, it's great, but I really enjoy the indie guys because it's everything to them. And what are some of the grip masters or books or resources that helped inspire you once you decided you were going to jump into the grip game?
Back in 2002, when I first found out about grip, there was nothing out there. There was very little. Put it that way. I would spend a lot of time searching online for articles and things like that. I remember I found a Finnish website, so I couldn't read anything, but the pictures were crazy. Everybody's hands were extremely beat up and calloused. They had calluses on their calluses.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there were a few books. So, Dinosaur Training by Brooks Kubik was one that I picked up, read that, and I got both of John Brookfield's publications, the Grip Master's Manual and
Mastery of Hand Strength.
Mastery of Hand Strength. Thank you. So I read both of those. Dinosaur Training was cool, but I think the Brookfield books helped me more because it opened up my mind to don't think about just this one thing. You can do that thing, but there's like 10, 20 variations in different ways that you can train almost the same exact way. So it enabled me to kind of build a mental portfolio of implements and training methods because there weren't a lot of companies that made stuff back then either. And I know that you had a company at one point that made stuff very early on in that time period. But other than that, there weren't a lot of companies. So now there's a lot of people that make grip equipment, but it wasn't like that back in the day.
Yeah, John, he was my mentor, and he personally did a lot of training for me or with me. And the great thing about his stuff, what kind of opened my eyes, is that you can make your own. It's kind of like I always tell people, when I first set a thick-handled dumbbells, you couldn't buy it. They didn't have fat grips back then. I just took a ton of duct tape and wrapped them around. And, of course, I kept making them thicker and thicker until they're almost unliftable. They were like 3.5 inches, and I have small hands anyway. But, John definitely had some out-of-the-box stuff. And you're kind of leading into this next question. When most people think of grip strength, they think of the Nutcracker style grippers you can get at the sporting goods store that you can close for 100 times. Can you share with us all the different types of grip? Not, most people just think crushing. Can you share with it? Because it's going to be an eye-opener to a lot of people because, again, we have kind of a very diverse audience. So they're going to kind of get their mind open to all the different types of grip. Can you share those different types?
Sure. There's crushing where you're moving your fingers through a range of motion. So that's your gripper training. Pinching, where the thumb and fingers oppose one another. They're on opposite sides of an implement. You can have static pinching where there's no movement, such as 245's pinch or a blob lift. You can also have dynamic pinch where you're working against resistance. So it could be easy as a clothespin, or it could be a clamp, a carpenter's clamp, things like that. And there's all kinds of equipment out there that you can buy for dynamic pinch. Support is primarily finger strength, but it's static, so there's no movement. So anything from a deadlift to a pull up, pull down, rows, that's all support grip. And then as your hands, as the implement is thicker, your fingers open up more. And as soon as you get to the point where you can't touch your finger and thumb, it's considered open hand support. because there's a gap between your fingertips and thumb. There's key pinch, which is where you put your thumb against the side of your finger. There is clamping, where your fingers are directed towards your palm or your thumb pad. Uh, and there's vertical support, where you would grip like this, and the implement is up and down, and you would grip like that. So you have to have an ulnar deviated position in your wrist. So I think that just about covers it. I may have missed one or two, but there's a lot of different disciplines in grip sport. So each one of those is very specific in creating and developing strength in those positions. So while you're using your hands at all times, there isn't always carryover to all other disciplines, or at least there isn't very much when you train a certain discipline. So, yeah, if you become a world-class gripper closer, then at that point, you probably got an advantage on open hand support grip, and vice versa. But just because you improve a little bit on grippers doesn't mean you're going to see a significant increase on your support grip. And naturally, grippers does absolutely nothing for pinching, so you can close all the grippers you want to, and your pinch won't go up very much. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, and there's something for everybody, and they're so fun, and you can kind of go down the rabbit hole on things. One of the things we're doing in our show right now, I do with just my middle finger. I've been lifting a refrigerator. I've been doing one finger lifting, and it's fun, but there's no carryover to anything other than some tendon strength, But that's what I'm trying to say is there's something for everybody when it comes to grip strength. But when we really, evaluate it, grip strength can make a difference in every athlete's game. And I see people all the time that, they'll spend all kinds of time on their biceps, they'll get in the squat rack and do curls, but they have zero forms. Can you share what some of the advantages are for every athlete when it comes to grip strength, why it is kind of the missing factor in their training?
So I boil it down to three things: lift, hold, and control. So when your grip is stronger, you can lift more. You can lift something and hold on to it longer, and you can control it better. So that even carries over to like the power lifts, bench, squat, deadlift. When your hands are stronger, it's like you can command that bar to go exactly where you want it to in the bench press. Your wrists don't buckle back. You're not leaking energy through your hands and your wrists and failing because of that buckling that goes on. You're able to keep that bar exactly where you want it to be on your back when you're squatting. There's no, and that also leads to better confidence, because if that bar is not moving, that's a lot better situation than wondering, is that bar going to slide off my back again? Am I going to lower this barbell to my chest and all of a sudden it's going to be coming towards my throat? All that stuff is it's all valuable to an athlete. And and then that's just in the weight room preparation, tackling people on a football field, being able to withstand injuries, like a goalie blocking balls that are coming at him at, I don't know, 50, 70 miles an hour. I don't even know how fast those balls go. But, if your fingers are stronger and you take one off a fingertip, then you still might tweak a finger, but hopefully you're going to prevent a complete break, rupture, and maybe even come back to 100% quicker because of that training you've done.
Yeah, I find that athletes, especially just talking about the bench press, a lot of people are like, well, what difference does that make? The fact that you can torque on that bar, we try to break the bar, you're creating that tension. People that are working on pull-ups, especially, like, hey, train your grip, learn to bend that bar, learn to get that dynamic tension. And I found that people, once they start training their grip, especially in the beginning, they're seeing these instant strength gains. And, like I said, for a lot of people, it's just the missing link in their training. They're training everything. They'll train calves, ankles, neck, which is so important, but everything but the grip. And so I appreciate you sharing about that. And I want you to kind of brag on yourself just a little bit. What are your favorite feats of strength, and what are some of the records? Like I said, you're constantly breaking records. What are some of the records that you personally are most proud of? I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and we're going to get back to our guest in just a minute. But I want to share a quick word about our sponsors. The Pressing the Limits podcast is brought to you by ZionMissionaryChurch.net. That's where you can listen and watch messages, you can share your prayer requests, or even find out how to plan a visit. And also by NeuroPowerSource.com. This is resources for your mind, your body, your spirit. You're going to find all the recommended supplements and gear I use, including the Be Strong bands, as well as the launch pad, and so much more. Be sure to check it out.
The competition record I'm most proud of is the two-hand pinch world record on the Euro, the adjustable pinch apparatus. That was developed in like 2004, and by 2005 I had one. It came from England.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me until 2009 to finally break the record. I had set American records, and I had the world record weight at the time on the implement several times, but it never came together until 2009. So that, anything that you accomplish that involves a tremendous pursuit, it's always more valuable to you, right? So that was something that was big for me. Never forget. And I ended up breaking that record 5 separate times. And once I did it twice in the same day. So that was very exciting. It's since been broken. I think my best was 268 pounds and change. And I think it sits around 273 now. So, but around 2013 or 14, I switched my emphasis from record breaking to competition winning. So I had to spread my time over more implements in order to become more well-rounded. So since then, it's been more about contest wins. I've had some other records. I've had the world record in the number 4 silver bullet hold. I've had the pickaxe lift record. I don't know if I have that anymore. I'm not sure what records at this point I actually still hold, because like I said, I don't pursue those on an ongoing basis. I had the flask pinch record. I think I broke that 2 or 3 times. I think someone else has come over top of me now. And then as far as feats, again, it's the pursuit, right? It's the years of trying and missing and then finally getting it. So I was the first person to ever pinch 2 of the old school York 45s in each hand. So I did that in March of 2017. I got my first set of Yorks in 2004. So in a way, it was 13 years of training. It wasn't consistent training. It wasn't like every week I was going in there and trying to lift those things. Mm-hmm. I think if it took me 10 years plus of consistent training, then there's something going on there. But, during breaks and competition schedules and stuff, then I would start training real heavy on those implements. I was the first person to lift a half 140-pound York Legacy. The only other person at the time to have ever lifted it was Brian Shaw. There's since been one other guy that's done it. So I'm working on the half 145 now. I've cracked it off the ground just 2 or 3 times. And I've cleaned the inch dumbbell maybe 10 times in my life.
Incredible.
And I've pressed the inch dumbbell about 10 times in my life, but I've never been able to clean and press it. So now that there's a break, I just got done with the North American Championships over the past weekend. So now that there's a break, my plan is to accomplish some more feats that I've been working on very hard for the last few years, and plan on knocking some of those out. if everything goes right. But those are some of the ones that are most mentionable as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. Yeah, the cleaning the inch, that's incredible to me. That is just an incredible feat. And folks, if you ever want to get humbled, go out and try and pick up an inch dumbbell. If it's not something you've ever trained for, you will be humbled for sure.
Can we talk about that just for a
Yeah,
second
for
to clear
sure.
up any possible confusion?
Yeah.
So, a lot of times people hear inch dumbbell and they think it's like a regular dumbbell with 1 inch handle, but it's actually named after the person that created it, Thomas Inch. So, it could be Thomas Bruni, and it would be the Bruni dumbbell. The dumbbell weighs 172 3 pounds, and the handle is 2 3/8 inches thick. So it's nearly 2.5 inches thick, and the handle, it's a cast iron dumbbell, so the handle does not rotate. So what happens is when you try to pick that implement up, the bells, which are, I want to say they're 6, 7, or 8 inches in diameter. I can't remember right now. They start to turn, and because they turn, it actually rips the handle through your hand, and it tries to escape your grip through that opening between your fingers and thumbs. So we're talking about something that the vast majority of people who spend years and years strength training will not be able to lift when they first encounter it because they are not accustomed to that wide open grip. Um, you mentioned a duct tape handle that you made at the beginning of this, and that's exactly what I did as well. While I was sitting and watching Monday Night Raw for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, I was taking a duct tape roll and applying it to a piece of PVC until it was about 2.5 inches thick, and I used that to build my strength back in the day. So a homemade piece of equipment was able to help me develop the strength I needed in order to lift the inch dumbbell. Because once I owned my own dumbbell, my own inch dumbbell, it only took me about 2 months to lift it. So that helped out tremendously to have that piece of equipment that I could use to just build open hand strength.
And it's a totally another beast. People are like, well, I've got a heavy dumbbell, I'll throw some fat grips on it. It's totally different with that cast iron. It is just something else. The amount of force that you have to place on that and the opening of the hand, which kind of leads into my next thing. Can you name some of your favorite as well as least favorite training implements? I just started training with the wrist wrench about a couple months ago. Heard a lot of hype about it. It's a lot of fun, but it reminds you of that principle of trying to roll out of your hands like the inch dumbbell. What are some of your favorite and then least favorite? And maybe you could put another twist on it too. What do you think are some of the most effective implements and the ones that are just hype?
So definitely my favorite implements to train are blobs and challenge bells, like
Mm-hmm.
inch dumbbell style challenge bells. Uh, but there's hundreds of grip implements out there. So if those are not around, or let's say I'm on vacation, I'm going to take some stuff with me. I'm going to take some kind of an iron or steel rolling handle that's a 2 3/8, 2.5 inches, and those are very valuable for developing your open hand strength for inch dumbbell work. Plus, they enable you to lift enough weight where you kind of get a little benefit in your full body and core as well. The My least favorite rolling handle on the market is the Rolling Thunder, which to me is the worst rolling action handle on the market. And I try to get people not to waste their money on that because in a lot of cases, you can buy like 2 rolling handles or more for the same amount of money and you'll get more benefit out of it. So unfortunately, the Rolling Thunder has the most renown, the most notoriety, and longest history. So a lot of people automatically think that makes it the best handle, but it's not. Um, for pinching, like I said, I love blob training. Uh, Real quick, a blob is half of a York dumbbell, and it's the recognized standard for pinch feats. It was the blob was developed or the term blob was developed by Richard Soren, who we just lost over this past weekend. So I found out about that on the second day of the North American Championship, and I was just totally crushed because Richard Soren was one of my biggest inspirations in grip training, and a very good friend. So man, I just when it comes up, I can't even believe he's gone. But as far as favorite pinch implements, I really just like working with plates. Uh, different 245 feats. I'm also working on a double 255s pinch, so calibrated 25 kilogram plates. There's only been, as far as I can think of right now, I think there's only been like one or two people that have done 255s in each hand. So I'm working on that. Uh, I've come to like the little bighorn, which is a cone shaped implement made by Iron Mind. I guess the purpose of it was to mock training to lift an anvil by the horn. Anvils are a lot of fun as well, very expensive, but I have a decent collection here between my training partner and I. We have up to a 200-pound anvil that I've done several combination feats with. Um, so those are some of my favorites. Least favorites would include the Rolling Thunder. I don't really like key pinch that much. To me, it seems like a waste of time. Hubs, I absolutely abhor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they just don't seem to carry over to any other lifts, and I would much rather have something that has multiple benefits in my training. But sometimes when those implements are in contests and you're trying to win, you got to put the time in. So uh, I've been I've been really close for a couple of years at getting a competition lift on the finish ball, which is a key pinch implement of 100 pounds, which isn't a record. I think the record is like 110 pounds, maybe even more. But it's a real dividing line. Like if you can get 100 pounds in competition, there's not going to be many people that beat you. So that is one thing I like to train on, even though it is key pinch. I don't know. What do you think? Any other specific implements?
Well, one of the things you mentioned is like the Rolling Thunder, and that was one of the very first things I bought too, because it was at the time there wasn't a lot of handles out there, and now I'm just finding the action on other handles is so much more. Like
Yeah.
I got a Country Crush a few years ago. I love the action on that, and now I found they've got a nice single handle. I'd like to
The
pick
Raptor.
that up, but to me, it just has a little
So
more action out of it.
in October of 2020, I did a massive handle comparison test, and I called it the hard to handle tournament.
Mm.
I acquired 20 different rolling handles that were all from 2 3/8 up to about 2.6 inches. And what I would do is I would have a face off between both handles. I would see how much I could lift on two different handles at one time, and whichever handle uh, produced less weight on the handle, it would be the winner, right?
Hmm.
Because that's a harder handle.
Sure.
And I had a losers bracket. Like it was a lot of fun running this. It took a tremendous amount of time. I expected to be done with it in a week or two. It took me over 2 months to finish. And I was doing like 4 or 5 matches per week.
Oh my
But
goodness.
the Raptor ended up coming out as the hardest handle on the market. Now, when you first asked me that question, my favorite thick bar handles are iron or steel rolling handles. There's nothing wrong with the Raptor in itself. In fact, the Country Crush, the two-handed version, I really enjoy training on. What people need to understand is the handle of the Raptor and the Country Crush are that dense, smooth plastic, and you cannot get a chalk base on those
Hmm.
handles. So what happens is it becomes very hard to develop any strength increases on that handle because you can't get friction on it. You can't get a good texture. And because of that, strength increases are very, very difficult. So uh, I would much rather spend my time working on a crusher from Fat Bastard Barbell Company or the One Hand Nightmare, which is something that I sell. Well, actually, I came up with the Napalm's Nightmare, which was a
Mm-hmm.
two-hand rolling handle device, and we since opened up a line of one-hand Nightmares, which are one-hand rolling devices. And we also it's a complete system. You can buy globe handles, pinch handles, different sizes, and all that stuff. It's a really, really good system that you can get and maybe spend $200 and be able to train just about all the different grip disciplines. So, and the Napalm's Nightmare has become a staple. It shows up in multiple contests every year. So if there's 15 contests, it'll be in like 10 to 12 contests. So it's become very, very popular.
Yeah, we're going to put a link up there a little bit later in the program where you'll be able to pick that up because everything that Jedd's involved with, it's fantastic quality. I can't say it enough. Got a couple questions for you for people that are just getting started. What are some of the most common mistakes people make in grip training, like not knowing how to set the grippers or, Joe, let's say average Joe's listening to this thing. He's like, hey, I'm intrigued. I know I need to start gripping. Like, what's the most common thing that you see mistakes right off the bat?
There's a lot of stuff. First off, like grip guys seem like they're willing to buy every piece of equipment that's out there, but they won't buy any instructional material to get the most out of it. So I see like terrible, terrible technique. Like they just don't understand how much technique is involved in these lifts. And it's like you're really getting granular with the technique points, but that minutia, you know, an old friend of mine, Paul Knight, one of the best gripper guys in the United States for several years, used to say pennies make dollars. So when you are able to put together these finer points of technique, your numbers will just start growing very quickly because you're optimizing that minute technique. So like technique awareness is one of them, and it applies to every single lift that's out there. On like the inch dumbbell, blobs, they just plop their hand on there and squeeze, and there's so much more that you can do in order to optimize your grip application in order to make a good lift. uh, Most new people do way too much at the beginning, myself included. I did way too much. I ended up with golfers and tennis elbow on both arms. I was eating like 8 Advil per session in order to be able to do everything, but at the same time I was training for a grip contest, training for a strongman contest, and doing steel bending all at the same time. Now, because I was like 24, like I didn't have a catastrophic injury, but if I tried to do that now at 45, it would be like impossible for me to recover from all that training. Um, Doing things like hand me down information, like wrist roller, like just like a dowel rod with a weight hanging off of it, complete waste of time, in my opinion. If they have a goal where they know that they need strong hands and they train with grippers in order to develop that hand strength, I think they're making a big mistake there. They'd be much better off with pinching and thick bar training. Um, Not using chalk, like thinking that they should just go without chalk. No, you should actually use chalk. When when you use chalk, it makes the surface more uniform, and you're able to train with more consistency. It would be like training inside one day and outside in the rain or in a torrential downpour the next. It just wouldn't be a good idea. You want to control as many variables as you can. Things along those lines, they're mistakes that I see by newbies, but a lot of it is just a lack of awareness. And once they become aware of the magnitude that these things have, then they can make the corrections and start to go in the right direction.
Yeah, one more question before we get into just where people can find your programs and how they can get involved. I think I'm going to know the answer to this, but what is one grip exercise everybody should be doing? So, like across the board, no matter what your discipline is, if there was one that's going to give you the most bang for the buck, what would that be?
I would say either some kind of one-handed thick bar handle deadlift or a one-handed thick bar row. And the reason why is because probably the row. The It's going to work your hand and you're going to get a stronger grip, but at the same time, it's going to make your whole entire arm work together. So we could say like rows with a rolling handle or rows with a thick bar implement. Either one of those would be good. And that's something that's going to have a great impact for not only grip sport athletes, but just anyone that needs to improve their hand strength. And I think that kind of uh, unilateral arm exercise is going to be hundreds of times more beneficial than just doing dumbbell curls. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with curls, but I think people do way too many of them. So, get in there, make sure your biceps are stimulated, but then make sure that you're doing other things that will be even more valuable as well. So that would be my pick right now.
Yeah, and people that the more they train their grip and get those things, that forearm development also helps with the bicep size eventually. So, last couple questions here. It's kind of like a two-parter. Where can people find your programs? Because, like I said, you're a world-class coach. You've helped people get stronger for a long, long time, helping them achieve their grip goals. Where can they find out more about you, your programs, and anything else that you'd like to share? Because my hope is that people, when they listen to this, that they're going to pick up a program, because you've already hit on it. It's good to get proper instruction because you can get really injured in grip. So tell us all about that, and let's get rolling with that, because I want to get some people out there and find these things.
Yeah, if you go to dieselcrew.com/store/shop, that I just created that last year. It's got every product that I sell almost on there. The only things that I haven't put into the store at this point are like the past variations of older products. And I'm working on getting those in there, but I'm also doing a tremendous amount of writing this year. And I'm working on an ebook on pinching 245s. But if you go to dieselcrew.com/store/shop, you have to have both of them in there. And I don't know why. That's how my old web guy set it up. I couldn't even find my own store for a while because I didn't realize the URL was formatted that way. But that's got everything there from my gripper videos, my gripper program, different workouts. It's got man, everything's there. The other place to go is thegripauthority.com. That site I launched in January of 2010, and for like 4 years straight, I put up at least one new post every month. This year, I've put up one new post almost every week. The Grip Authority is where I put up my best instructional material, and there's actually a lot of free products on there. But the feedback I get from my YouTube channel is like, wow, I've learned so much, and like the problem is like I don't even put instructional stuff up on YouTube. Like I literally don't. I'll do Q&As every so often, and they're information rich, but thegripauthority.com, I've got tutorials, how-to videos, Q&As, interviews, full-on products, my workouts. There was a workout of the month for like 5 years straight on that. So there's a ton of stuff. If you're looking to improve your grippers, rolling handles, axle deadlift, Saxon bar, blob work, inch dumbbell, there's stuff on there all over that site. So those are the two main locations to go to for good quality information. You won't find any better detailed grip products online. I would say that I've even surpassed like the Grip Master's Manual and Mastery of Hand Strength as far as that's concerned, because when I do a deep dive on one product, it's like a compilation of everything I've learned up until that point. So this 245Z book is going to be ridiculous. It'll be in the same vein as my nail bending ebook, my card tearing ebook. They're complete explorations of the topic. You won't find anything better.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank our guest, Jedd Napalm Johnson, for investing in all of our listeners today. Thank you so much, Jedd, for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. If you ever want to do something again, just let me know. And if anyone has any questions about anything, they can contact me. My email address is jedd.diesel@gmail.com, jedd.diesel@gmail.com. They can find me on Instagram. My handle is @jedd.diesel. I'm on Facebook. I welcome questions. I'll point you in the right direction. And I wish you all the best in your podcast and your businesses and all that stuff, my man.
Thanks, brother. As we close the show, just want to give a shout out in memory of Richard Pops Soren. He will be greatly missed. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, ZionMissionaryChurch.net, NeuroPowerSource.com, our podcast producer, Drew Kiespert, video director, Jolyn Thomas, Head of Talent Relations, Mr. Fairfax Hackley. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to us. Hit that bell to the Pressing Limits podcast and follow us on Instagram for the latest episodes. For more ways to watch and listen to the podcast, check out the Pressing Limits podcast website. We'll see you soon.